Sambodha, I think you are on mute.
Sorry. So the most obvious, like to those of you who are preparing for finance, I guess I need to give you a brief overview of why finance. Basically, it's money. That's obvious. Money को छोड़ के और भी reasons हो सकते हैं. Like it's a great place to work, and it's a much more serious career in the sense that you will get to work on a lot of projects that impact the global economy, your own country, and like it has a lot of repercussions basically in every sector that you see. Like in most companies, you will be working on a specific domain, like SD Lelo. So you'll be working in a very specific part of a programming language or a specific code production. But in finance, it is not restricted at all. You keep like switching your sectors, switching your domains, and you make good bucks doing it. So, like, yeah, that was my motivation for joining finance, for applying for finance. That can be your motivation. You can have some other motivation as well. So yeah, this is a nice movie actually. You guys can watch it out. Harshad Mehta. Okay, so let's start out with the roles in the industry. So basically, the companies that come for finance to IIT Kanpur are mainly banks. Uh, Banks have several types. There is retail banking, there is investment banking, and then there are some other roles such as asset and wealth management, risk management, sales, trading, and so on. So the main distinction between retail banking and investment banking is the clients. Like investment banks are primarily towards a particular clientele, which is a corporate structure, mostly or maybe very, very wealthy individuals. Retail banks are banks like ICICI, HDFC, SBI that provide customers a service. But investment banks go beyond that. They have a huge amount of funds lying around. They have huge volume of trades going through them. And like in general, they tend to be a more higher payoff role. So over here we have asset and wealth management. By asset and wealth management means that this is primarily under an investment banking group that you will do it. Basically, a lot of individuals who are very wealthy, very fluid in cash, they come to the banks and deposit their money, and basically the bank takes care of the investing part for them. So that this is one of the major ways an investment bank earns money, by charging a commission fee. Then there's risk management. That is, the bank itself needs to be properly hedged. By hedging, I mean that there should be a appropriate balance of how much you are into a particular commodity. You can hedge your risks by reducing your risk level or by appropriately buying something else to offset the risk. So yeah, risk management is very important because if you don't risk manage, you can have a 2008 type situation really quickly. So every bank has a risk management team, and yeah, you can think about this by looking at like credit risk, market risk, country risk. Yeah, all of these risks are like tied together into something we call a credit score or a bond rating. Yeah. So sales and trading is the part of investment banking where you actually deal with clients. Like every investment bank needs clients, and clients are not easy to convince. So every investment bank will have a sales team whose primary job will be to talk to clients, to keep in touch with them, to sell the product basically. Something that you will learn throughout is that investment banks represent the sell side of the business, and the buy side of the business is mainly hedge funds, quantitative funds, uh, basically like funds like Optiver, Citadel, Jane Street. These represent the buy side of the business. We are the sell side of the business. That is, we sell our services to these funds so that we can manage our portfolio as well. They can help us. They can manage their portfolio as well, and so on. Okay. Uh, 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so now we come to major investment banking. Investment banking includes M&A. M&A is when a big company acquires a smaller company and the entire financial restructuring needs to be done, or two companies merge into one. For example, like we can, an example of out of the top of my head is Tata. It acquired Jaguar Land Rover. So there was a lot of deals to be made, a lot of structuring to be done. So an investment bank takes care of all that. Basically, Tata employees don't need to worry too much about how the merging will take place. Then another thing that is not written here, but I'll say comes under investment banking is the debt and equity markets. So any kind of product that is sold at any exchange needs to be structured by an investment bank or basically the exchange. So basically, any type of product you see, whether it is equity such as stock or like any form of futures options on these stocks, or like bonds, let's say like US Treasury bonds, or these kind of financial commodities are not available freely. To make these sort of commodities, an investment bank needs to step in, do the evaluation, do the risk management, do the risk assessment, and only then will it become a commodity that is traded on a particular exchange. So that is the main principle of investment banking, and mainly the bank I am working at, Deutsche, does mainly debt related things. So it's fixed income. Uh, yeah. So these are a lot of terms that I'm throwing at you. I expect most of you to like not remember these terms, but recording देख लेना जब समझ आएंगे. So yeah, if you have any doubts, you can let me know at the end of the session. Yeah, it's Rashi.
Mayank, you can go forward with this, presenting this one.
Okay, so I think Rashi is not there in the meet. So like I'll go like why finance? Why are you choosing the role for finance? So I'll say the main primary reason is interest. You must have done some like projects till now, or even if you have not done some project, you might like see your friends doing projects. There are many clubs, societies doing finance related things. So I'll say the major point is if you're interested in finance, then you need to try out some companies. You need to know that is it just impulsive interest or do you want to actually pursue this field? So, like, if you're interested in stock markets or interested in crypto, like I was personally very interested in crypto. I used to do blockchains and Web3, so I was very interested in crypto trading. So yeah, and of course, like uh, there's a very good trajectory. You can like start out with a bank, then you can go to investment bankings, and then you could like again switch to another career options. So like within finance community, there are a lot of career options, and it has like you can switch between them very easily. If you are in an, I'll say if you're in an outside field, like if you're in SD and then coming to finance is a bit difficult. But if you're in finance in some role, maybe you're in risk management, then I think switching to investment banking or switching to some other things is like easier. You can move to the next slide. So like these are the major companies that visit our campus. So like the quant roles are like Optiver, Jane Street, Alpha Grep, Quad Eye, and all these. So mostly these quant companies I'll say are open for the circuitry branches only. So if you are a guy like me who is in mechanical but still interested in finance, so sorry to say, but these are not like open to you. But if you are in a circuitry branch and you're targeting these companies, then I think there's a very separate method of preparation than if you're targeting finance companies. So most of these quant companies are like I'll say they're more into first of all, these can be divided into two roles. First is the quant one, and then is the systems role. So for the systems role, you need like good coding skills. You need to know what is happening behind the coding. If I take for example C++, you need to know what's going behind C++, like how is the memory being managed, how is everything going on. So that all is comes under systems. And then the quant trading side, of course, you need to know finance. You still need to know coding for that. And then we come to the finance to the finance domains. So most of the finance companies that come are banks, like Sambudha told. We have Morgan, JP, Citibank, Barclays, Edelweiss, HSBC, PwC, Deutsche, Axis, Goldman, Nomura, Excella. So like these are the banks that come over here. Uh, Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay. So now it's like, how do you prepare for these companies? So first of all, if you're applying for any finance related companies, you need a very good resume. Most of the companies have a round that is based on like resume shortlisting, or even in the interviews, they ask questions based on your resume. So like having a very, very good resume is very important. And not just like I'm telling good resume in the terms of like you're throwing big words. That's not a good resume. It's like what you have done, write exactly that, and each and every word of the resume you must be very clear. Like it should not be the case that you need to go through your resume again and again and again and again for before the interview. It should be like you have done all these things, you're very confident. Even if I tell you in the middle of the night to explain your resume any point of it, you're very comfortable with it. Explain like the keywords, make tables in your resumes, always get your resume verified by seniors. Like it's and like start preparing the resume beforehand. So like don't leave it for the last. It becomes very difficult in the last to manage. Like I did that mistake. So like make your resume from the starting, get it verified by seniors, like, and not just one or two seniors. I'll say go through like 10 times. You'll need to make 10 iterations for it. So that is very important. And second of all, in your resume, make different resume for different profiles. Like if you're targeting consult profile, don't send that resume in those finance related domains. These finance companies are like very interested in your finance projects. So if you have some finance projects, that would be very advantageous. Also, then we have finance projects and internships. Okay, so that comes under your resume part only. So you need to, if you don't have, then it's not compulsory, but if you have, you can highlight them. I did not have a internship in finance, but I had done projects in that. So that was very important. I was asked questions on that, and I think I was even shortlisted because of those projects. So then coding, of course, like everything requires coding. Like most of the companies will have a coding round. Nomura specifically did not have a coding round, but they asked coding in the interview rounds. So I'll not say you need a very, very good coding as like quants or that, but if you're applying for finance, decent coding, you know your applications, you know why, where, what is used. So like we'll come to the preparation of coding later on. And then yeah, this domain knowledge, probability and puzzles. So this is the favorite part of finance companies. Each and every one of them ask puzzles, then questions related to probability. And if you're going into finance, expect that they'll ask you finance questions too. Okay. Move to the next slide. So yeah, now we come to the major part, like how to prepare. Like maybe you're interested, maybe you're this, then how to start. Like it's the starting of the summers, you have 2 months. How do I go about these summers? How do I prepare myself? So first of all, I'll say have a good finance knowledge. So what do I mean by finance knowledge? So there are many, many resources on the web, on internet. There's Zerodha by Varsity. Then there's many YouTube channels you can go through. So I'm not saying to cover them all, but have just like make 2 or 3 topics that are strong. If you're interested in equities, or if you're interested in fixed income, just read about that, read about hedging, read about these basic terms. Then there's knowledge about the global and economic scenarios of like many of the times they're asked, like I was asked in Nomura about the budget that came out recently when we were doing our interview rounds were going on. So having that knowledge is very important. Like even if you do not know in very depth, I'll say you need to know the crux. Like if there's a new, like currently there are the tariffs going on between the US and China. That's a very good topic that they can ask about. Like how is that affecting the markets? What do you think will be the future of the markets? So that is good. Then there's probability and puzzles. So for probability and puzzles, I'll say if you have not done any courses like MSO or HSO, so that is you can do something like those. You can take slides from your friends and you can do those. Although I do not suggest MSO, you could do HSO because like it is more practically based. I read those HSO slides, so that is like it comes in handy. And then for puzzles, there are many things on the internet. Like you'll have You have Brainsteller, you have AlgoQuant, you have many websites that can do this. Then you also have books for those. So books like 50 challenging problems, or all these books. Like you can don't cover everything. Just take one thing, do that properly. I personally did the 50 problems in the 50 challenging problems in probability, and I did Brainstellers for puzzles. So yeah, and then GD. Nomura specifically did have GDs. Many other companies have GDs. So having like experience to GDs is very important. Like to know what you need to say, when you need to say. Like GD is not about talking more. It's talking more to the point. Like moving the conversation forward. That's the major point of GD, and then coming to a conclusion. So it's not like the person who has spoken the most is the best in the GD. Like you need to note down points. You need to consider like, what is the topic, is your point really relevant? If you want to challenge someone else's point, you can do that as well. So that is important. And HR rounds is like common to all the domains irrespective of finance or not. Can you repeat the 50 problems? That will come in the next slide. The name will come in the next slide, don't worry. Yeah, so HR rounds that I was telling, like it is common to all the companies. So there are very like standard HR questions that every company asks, like why this company, are you choosing finance, like where do you see yourself in 5 years, then like give a short intro about yourself. So all these are like very standard questions that all the companies ask. So prepare them beforehand, because you might stutter between them in the interviews, or like you then maybe later remember I could have said this. So it's better to prepare before. You can ask most of your seniors. Everyone would have gone through some HR questions, so you can make a list out of those. And then I'm not saying right now, but towards the end of the summers you could start preparing for them. And preparing, I'm saying not in the sense that you just learn 5 to 6 lines. That's not preparing. So it is mainly like remember the key pointers and then say it in a flow that it does not look that you have like learned everything. So that is very important, the way you present yourself in HR rounds. Okay, we can move to the next slide. So yeah, I was telling about the resources. If you are not comfortable in finance, you could start with Zerodha. It has very good modules, videos. You can go through them. Then do not get overwhelmed with these many books. These are just the suggestions. These are not like you have to do complete all of them. JC Hull is a very good book. This Options, Futures, and Derivatives by JC Hull. If you are interested, you can read that. And see, someone was asking those challenging problems, right? 50 challenging problems in probability by Monsteller. So that is there over here. So even other companies around, Excella has like these game rounds. You can go through them. Zerodha has many modules. How many of them should be completed? As many as you can. That is the best answer, I'll say. Like, it's not like you have to spend entire days doing that. I'll say in your prep, you could just take out an hour or two and just watch those videos, make notes, and then understand whatever is going on. Rather than doing like everything in one day, dedicate some half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours to it. And then how much you can do it, it does not matter, one module, two module. But whatever you're doing, be like thorough in that, go in depth in that, because the people that come, they are doing finance for many years. They're very comfortable in it. So the more interest you show in a topic, the more they will ask about it, and they'll just go in the nook and crannies of that topic and ask more and more and more. So like even if you're preparing few topics, that is like, even if you're I did only futures and options, but they went in depth with options. So that is important. And then these are all the resources that you can refer. That's it. So we can start with that experience. So
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll start with mine first. Deutsche Bank started with a resume shortlisting. Like every company you see will start with a resume shortlisting. After that came an online aptitude test. It was not really an aptitude test. It was more like moral science questions, like what would you do in the workplace, sort of. So it was काफी random. Like I don't know how I got shortlisted or anything. And then we had 3 online interview rounds. So in the first round, it was more of a resume overview. They asked like any random question that they could. I was asked a guesstimate. I was asked a coding question that was kind of simple. It was about sorting algorithms. Then there were puzzles. There were lots and lots of puzzles, but there were like the well-known ones. Like there was nothing that was outside Brainstellar, Puzzle Pond, these kind of things. It was all like well-known problems. So that was there. The second interview round was of a slightly higher standard. The puzzles were a bit harder. Coding, they went into a bit more depth. And the main thing that came over here was the resume. Like I was asked pretty in-depth questions about the projects on my resume. And also they told me to like explain how these projects would apply to a real world situation. They want, see, I did not have any financial projects on my resume, nor did I have any involvement with finance. It was a very technical resume. I used the same resume for like quant and tech roles, so there was nothing different in that. Uh, but yeah, they wanted to see whether the ML skills I had, whether the coding skills I had could transfer to a financial background and whether I knew enough about finance to make that connect. So, for instance, like this came along in my third interview round. It was with a vice president in Deutsche Bank. Uh, I was like asked about my courses, what was going on. So I had written data structures and algorithms is something I've done. So I had not done the DSA course, but I had just written ESC 111. So from that only he started asking me all sorts of questions. I was asked to I was asked for one of the one of the shortest path algorithms, not Dijkstra's, the one of the other ones, Floyd Warshall or something. So over there, I had to go into depth and explain my entire thought process, how it works. Not very formal, but like I needed to have a very good idea about what exactly goes on. Then came the machine learning discussions, statistics was discussed. And then like basically he asked me, I had a project on RNNs. So he asked me, how would you apply this project in something financial? So I had to go into depth about like how the stock market is basically a time series data and how time series data connects to RNNs and so on. So if you are sitting for a finance interview, be very clear that even if you don't have finance projects, how you can relate your projects to financial domains is very important. Like, and try to do some finance projects at least. Like, if you're sitting only for finance or like some related domains, then yeah, try to do a few finance projects so that you get the experience. I feel like if I had done a few finance projects, it should have helped me get around much clearer. Okay, so these three were online rounds. Then comes the first offline round, and over there were two directors who were sitting, and one of them gave me a very complex puzzle. It wasn't a puzzle. To call it a puzzle would be an understatement. It was like a pure probability measure theory type question. It was very algebraic and like I could not solve it, but like he wanted to hear how I was thinking about the problem, how I was going about my approach. And then basically we started talking about finance. And so like he asked me why are you going for a finance career? So I started talking about like movies and stuff. And then like he asked me which movies. And then I said The Big Short. And then we started talking about 2008. And then like we went into a lot of depth on one single thing, credit default swaps. Because I later found out like in the last week itself that he himself works in trading credit default swaps. So yeah, I had just read the Investopedia article the night before about what it is. And so like my entire interview kind of took a new route. Like we just kept talking about credit default swaps. And like wherever I went wrong, he was like, nahi, nahi, tu wapas soch, think about why this should not happen. So yeah, like even if you don't know, like try to have an intuitive sense because of the amount of things you've watched online or like you have read somewhere. So yeah, like financial ability will be tested somewhere or the other, even if you are not from a financial background, even if you have not done any courses. Eco 111 I had done. So like I spoke about that and like what all I had covered in that course. Yeah. So after this round, after this intense grilling, came a very intense HR round. Like this HR round was no joke. The managing director of the company of Deutsche Bank was sitting in the HR round and he started asking me anything and everything. Like he asked me about my family, about my younger brother, about my own personal life. Like nothing was off the table. He asked me like my order of companies. He asked me what all companies I had gotten shortlists in. Yeah, so it was a lot of information and it had to be presented in a very delicate way. You can't just go there and tell him that you are my third preference or fourth preference and expect him to choose you. So you need to be very gentle with it. You need to be very subtle with the way you talk to them, especially with like big people like managing directors in the interview. HR round was more or less like very comfortable. It went on for a while. It went on for 45 minutes around. After that, I was given the offer. I had shortlists in other companies, but like they made it very clear that I had to reject all of them if I wanted to go for the role. So yeah, I chose the bird in the hand. Uh, moving on. Yeah, Rashi, I think you're up.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, so I'm facing a little bit of network issues, so I will not be presenting with my video.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So for JP Morgan, first, of course, there was a test, and this was an online test. So in this online test, there were three, four parts. One was DSA. There was another part on probability and statistics, and then there was another part on maths questions. So that was the quantitative aptitude part. And so, okay, so for DSA, I think all the topics were important, like except topics that are like, if you look at a course and the related topics like graphs, so they were not involved in the test. And then for the probability, so one thing is that I had taken the MSU 201 course, so that was quite helpful. I don't think that is necessary. You can, of course, do HSO 201 and that will be helpful. And if you have not done the course, that's also fine. But yes, going through the slides would be a good idea. And then for quantitative aptitude, there were like some maths questions, like sort of JE, but like sort of like JE questions, but easier. And so that's that. Also for probability, in addition to the MSO course that I had done, I mean, obviously most people do go to other resources, and I went through Brainsteller. So I solved all the problems in Brainsteller, and I was also referring to PuzzlePond, which is another resource where you can solve the questions. Like so, Brainsteller just has questions and you have to solve them on your own. And on PuzzlePond, it's like you can time yourself and then see how much time you're taking to solve the question. So it's also like a testing platform in some way. So those two I definitely recommend, and of course there are resources that I mentioned earlier as well. And so then there was the resume shortlisting round. This was after the test, as far as I remember, yes. And then, so the first round was, so actually all these rounds were conducted one after the other. And I think within some 1.5 hours, all the 4 rounds were concluded, 1.5 to 2 hours. So in the first round, I was asked some general aptitude type probability problems. And so they were not asked verbally, they were like pen and paper questions that they'll give you and then you solve them. And here, they were quite similar to the problems that there are on Brainsteller and PuzzlePond. Then some finance questions were asked. So these questions were not very detailed. And so there are some companies that require you to have a lot of finance experience, and they really want you to have finance projects. JP Morgan Chase is not one of those companies. So they understand that, okay, you are studying in a technical college and they just want to figure out if whatever work you have done, of course, if that can be applied to finance, and if you have good enough knowledge in whatever you've done. So, I mean, whatever projects you've done, if you didn't really do them well or तुमने अगर fraud वगैरह मारा, then that's not going to be helpful. So it is helpful to have some finance knowledge, obviously, because you are sitting for a finance interview. So for that, I had gone through a lot of Investopedia articles, and so I was asked questions on options and derivatives, futures, forwards, swap finance, and such things. Then some basic statistics questions were asked. So I would recommend that you go through HSO 201 slides. And then some basic Python knowledge. So I asked questions on object-oriented programming, and then I was asked what polymorphism is or what inheritance is and such things. So this was the first round. This was about, I think, some 25-30 minutes. And then there was the second round. So they pay a lot of attention to your resume. So if you have a lot of finance projects, then you will be billed on those, obviously. And if you don't have finance projects, then they'll look at whatever is most relevant to them from your resume. So obviously, it's a good idea to have very good hold over all the topics, all the projects that you have on your resume. But when you're just preparing for the interview, then you should know that, okay, this company is going to focus more on these things. So since this role, my role was trading and structuring, but the interview was actually held for two roles together, and that was sales and analytics, as well as trading and structuring. So whatever projects on my resume were relevant to either of these two roles in the slightest way, I was asked questions on those. So just for reference, in case there's anybody here who wants to sit for JP Morgan or finance companies, and if you don't have that many finance projects or even a single finance project, that is okay. You should have some idea of what project was more on. So for me, they focused on this school dropout prediction project that I had on my resume, and there was another project on churn analysis. This was the project that I had mentored. And so it's not like they asked you questions on every single machine learning project that you have done. I also had some work in computer vision, and that was a hackathon. And then I also had some work with chatbots, but they didn't ask me about any of those things. And then there were some competitions. Can you please repeat the project? Okay. Okay, so I was saying that they won't ask you about every single project on your resume if you don't have a finance focus, if you don't have finance projects. Okay, if you do, then of course they'll ask you in great depth about those projects. For me, I didn't have any finance project on my resume. So what they did was that they asked me about projects that were somewhat relevant or could be related to finance. So one was a school dropout prediction project. So this was machine learning. But then there were also some other machine learning projects that I had in my resume that they did not ask me about. They did not ask me about my chatbot project or my computer vision hackathon. They did not ask me about some other competitions. So there was a competition that I was a part of that was on strategy for sustainability. And then there was another one that was for ideas for automotive innovation. So of course, they won't ask you questions on those things. But they did ask me about a churn analysis project. So before the interview, take some time to figure out which projects they'll be focusing most on. If you are somebody like me who does not have a finance-focused resume. Yes, for the second round, there was resume billing. So there was a lot of detailed project discussion. And this was the project that I had mentored for churn analysis, which is that when you're trying to predict how many customers are going to discontinue taking services from a company. So there was that. Then they asked me about market entry strategies for an FMCG company which wants to begin serving products in a new country. This was related to my project. I mean, this was part of the project that I had mentored. And so they went into depth over there. And then about customer segmentation and cost optimization for another company. This was also part of my project. So they went into more depth over there. And then some finance questions were asked. So the topics were the same as in the first round, but they had gone into more depth in the second round. And then actually my third round happened to be the HR round. For some reason, it was before the last technical round. So then HR type questions, like others have said before, are the same for most companies. Why do you want to work for us, and what do you understand of these roles? Because this interview was for two of the roles that JP Morgan has. So they asked me to explain what I understood of both of the roles. And then there was a fourth round. So for this, they focused a lot on my school dropout prediction project. And so the models that we had used for logistic regression and decision trees and random forest. And then they asked me also about some other models like XGBoost and backend. And so this is going to be quite specific to the type of resume that you have. And then ML questions and topics directly and marginally related to the work. So yeah, they went into a lot of detail regarding the projects that they found relevant. And okay, then some company specific tips. So like I said, finance projects are not necessary, but some finance knowledge is important. And this is, yeah, so I went through a lot of Investopedia articles, and I have a list of resources in case anyone wants exactly what I had studied before the interview. You can just ask me and I can share those resources with you. You will be questioned in a lot of detail on 1 to 2 of your resume projects that they find relevant. And even if there are topics that are slightly related to the work that you have done and not exactly what you have done, they will still ask you a lot of detail on those things. So make sure that you have good knowledge about those topics. And as for helpful courses, I already said HSO should be quite helpful. Then, of course, for TSA, your ESC 111 and 2 are very helpful. So that's there. And one thing is that
Okay, we
these
can
two
move on to
roles
the next one.
were, yeah, I was just finishing
you
one
can
thing. I was
continue.
saying that, yeah. So I was saying that these two roles had not come to IIT Kanpur before. So I had to ask students from IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay who sat for these interviews and then they got through. So you can't really rely or predict the type of roles that will come from JP Morgan, and try to find out seniors who got accepted into roles that come just time. So that is there. And other than that, so I wasn't really asked any questions on DSA in my interview, but of course it was part of the test. And I know of a lot of other people who were asked DSA questions in the interview as well. Like they asked me probability and statistics questions pen and paper based, and some people were asked DSA questions on pen and paper. So they might do such things. It's a good idea to have knowledge of these things. So DSA, PropStat, some Python knowledge, then you have your general aptitude math question. Then machine learning is not necessary, but it is helpful. I mean, at least for the analytics role, if you apply for the analytics role, then of course machine learning projects are going to be helpful. Had they conducted a separate interview just for the trading and structuring role, then I don't think machine learning projects would have been important. But this was a combined interview for analytics and trading and structuring. So that's why I was questioned in a lot of detail on my ML projects as well. And yes, if you have anything else, please feel free to ask, or you can, of course, send a DM as well later on. Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to the next company.
Sure, you could switch to the next slide.
Rashi, you can stop presenting. Okay.
Okay, so specifically for Nomura, like Nomura came after 3-4 years to IIT Kanpur. So before like 2019-18, it used to come. Then post-COVID, it just stopped coming. So for Nomura comes for 2 roles, that is wholesale market and global markets. So wholesale, I'll say wholesale is more towards the consulting side, like where should one which company should one acquire, like internal consulting of Nomura. And then the domain that I went was with global markets. So I'll say global markets is more towards the finance and quant side. There are many teams inside global markets. So there could be team like index structuring, algo quant, securitized products. So these are like internal roles within the global markets. So Nomura covers like almost all the domains of finance that you'll see. It covers risk management, fixed income, equities, everything, hedging. So I think all these domains Nomura covers it. So mainly the very first round was your online resume submission. So resume submission happened through that SPO portal, that RAS portal. So you had to submit your resume, and then they gave a list of 20 students for the global markets, 20 students for the wholesale strategy. So after that, I think there were more than 20. There were around 30 to 40 students for that. So the first round was the group discussion round. So in that, it was like they formed team of six students, and then among those 6-7 students, you were given a topic. There was a mediator that was a member from Nomura, and then like you were given a topic, and that topic was from the current financial situation. Like that time, the union budget just came out, so we were given like how does that union budget invest the retailers or investors. So we were given that topic, and we were expected to talk for 10-15 minutes, and it was a very structured GD. So it was like each and every one was given chances to speak. So that was the GD round. And just after the GD, in the same round, you were handed a pen and paper, and then you were told to solve questions. And there were 3 questions. All 3 were puzzles. 2 were directly from Brainsteller, and 1 was like slightly modified version from Brainsteller. So like they told you to write, gave a pen and paper, and they told you to solve those and submit those. So the GD plus the pen paper round, this was entirely just a single round that they conducted. So after that, they gave the shortlisting for the next round. So, and now these 3 interview rounds, I'll say that they're very specific to you. If you say you are good in finance, they'll ask you about finance. If you say that you're good in coding, they'll ask you about coding. Whatever you say, you say you are good in ML, they'll ask you about ML. So I told I was not very strong in finance, so I told like I'm good in DSA, but I also had some finance projects in my resume. Like I did the Inter-IT, in which I made a future trading platform, so that was very helpful. And also I had a schematics project called Mathematical Trading Strategies, so that was a finance related project. So in the first round, I was asked like pure hardcore DSA. So these were graph questions, like connected graph, disconnected graphs, and then they asked me some DP questions. And it was not like just you could just tell them the solution. They expected like from the very starting to the very end, they gave me a pen and paper and they told me to write all the solutions. So yeah, that was a very hardcore round. So this was the first round, and then the second round was more involved towards like your resume, your more puzzles and projects. So most of the puzzles I'll say were directly from Brainsteller. So just go through all the puzzles very carefully, and it's not like you just tell them the answer. Tell them about the thought process, how you came at the answer. Like this could be the initial hard-coded answer, but then through optimization or through more thinking, you thought that the answer to this puzzle could be this. So explain them your thought process throughout. And like I had a lot of projects on blockchains and futures and options. Not a lot, just a single project. So they asked me about like, what do you think about blockchains? What do you think about crypto? What could be the future? How can you apply this in finance related roles? So I was asked all this. Even in my resume, like they stuck with this project and the mathematical trading strategies, which I told. So they asked me questions related to both of these projects. And then the third round was HR round, and the HR round was like more towards the DSA round. I did not expect that they'll ask me more DSA. So I just went in and they asked me even more DSA. They asked me more DP questions, more graph questions. And again, I was told to solve on pen and paper. So I connected. I was asked about, I think, a graph question and 1 DP question in the last round as well. So I was expected to write that. And like I connected those questions with the previous probability questions they asked. Right. So these questions were connected to the questions they asked before. Just instead of probability, they gave these questions as coding. So yeah, these were the 3 rounds. But like depending on like your preference, these rounds change a lot. Also, like if you're targeting the other role, that is the wholesale strategy, I'll say to talk to the seniors who appeared for that role, because the interview process for that role is very different from the interview process of global markets. Can move on to the next slide. So like I'll add some things. Like I did a lot of DSA in my summers. So like these are some of the tips that I went through for DSA. So like there are many platforms you'll find. You'll find InterviewBit. Someone will be doing like CSCS. Someone would be doing some other books. So I'll say just stick to one resource. I stuck to InterviewBit, and like I solved all the questions very thoroughly. I did like whatever topics they have: arrays, DP, graphs. Like I did each and every single question of that. And like that is just not doing the question, like understanding why are you using this. And like I did that before 15, 20 days before the interview starts, so that you are comfortable with all the rounds. And then give, if you are interested in coding, like I was particularly very interested in DSA, so I gave contest, although these are not like mandatory, but if you like, you can give contest on Codeforces or any other platform. And then if you are very new to coding, I'll suggest, like many of my friends were doing, like they were just going through theory and they weren't practicing, or they were just, they are saying that they'll practice at the end, so don't do that. If you are like studying the theory, do those practical side by side. If you study like some topics of graph, just do that graph question side by side, that you are comfortable with that. Also, like you can find some friends that you can discuss solutions with, that helps a lot. And also, like once you're comfortable, I'm not saying that you should code each and every question. Even if you understand the crux of the question, what concept they're targeting, that is more than enough. You can then skip those questions and like just understand what is happening. That's enough, I think. That will get you through. Like if you're not comfortable with finance, then this is the alternative, because like they have to ask something in the interview, right? So if you are not comfortable with finance, I'll say then go with DSA. That's it. You can move ahead.
Okay, so session has ended. I thank all the speakers for giving such an insightful session. These tips will help Y23 students to crack their internships. And if any one of you from the audience have any doubts or need to ask any questions, can reach out to the speakers. Their details are as in the screen. And yeah, thank you everyone for being the part.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you will get the slides. For the slides, we'll send a drive link. So you can check your mailboxes. The recording and the drive link and the PPT link will be shared there.